Hello and welcome to this course on your introduction to HTML and CSS. In this course, what we're going to cover is how to create this postcard, not just with design, but with the ability to flip back and forth. And we're going to do the entire thing in HTML and CSS. There's not going to be any higher level programming than that. We're not going to use any JavaScript tricks or anything. Strictly HTML and CSS. This is going to give you the best introduction into these two base level programming requirements. This is what you're going to use for pretty much any level of programming that you're going to do out there. You're going to need to know HTML and you're going to need to know CSS. So this is a great place to start. Now, the very first thing that we're going to need to do is set up your text editor. This is where we get started. Now, the best text editor out there is called VS Code. And the great thing is it's 100% free. If you already have this thing installed, skip over this next video and you can move on from there. All right. But if you don't, here we go. To install VS Code, just simply go to vscode.com. Or actually, I guess it's visualstudio.com, but just type in VS Code and it'll take you right over to here. And from here, you can download this for whether it's Mac or Windows, it's not going to matter. Both are going to work for you. And we can just simply download that. I already have it installed, so I'm just going to open it straight up. For you, go ahead and open this up. This is going to be the first type of the screen that you're going to see. And from here, you can open up a folder, or you can go up to your top menu and just go to File and Open Folder. Either way is going to work for you. So in the next video, let's go ahead and cover setting up our folder and file structure. Great. So let's set up our folder and file structure. So from here, again, I can just click on open or go up to the top. Open folder. And let's go ahead and build this over on our desktop just so you know exactly where it is and you can get to it real fast. So I'm going to go desktop, new folder, and let's just set up a folder called projects. I'm sure that there's going to be more projects that you're going to do in the future. So it's good to just have one little place that you can go and find all of those projects. So projects, inside of here, let's create a new folder called postcard. Fantastic. And we could actually continue to build out new files straight from in here. But we're good with that. Let's just go ahead and click on open. We can do the rest inside the text editor itself. Okay. Now that we have our folder open and you can see it up at the top, it says postcard. Let's start building out a couple of our files that we're going to need. This is a real simple project, so we don't need that many files. But the first one we're going to go ahead and create is a folder. And so we can just click on this where it says new folder and just put in CSS. It's a good thing to go ahead and have either a folder called assets, and then inside of there, you could do CSS and JavaScript and so on. But again, simple project. We don't need that. Let's just create a folder called CSS, and inside there, we'll put any kind of CSS files that we need. And then right here, we're going to create a new file called index.html. Now, again, that is not going to be inside of the CSS folder. It's going to be at the root, so outside of that CSS folder. Inside of the CSS folder, and so if we just click on it, you can see that little caret drop down. We're going to put a new file. So again, this will be inside of there. And that we're just going to call postcard.css. Fantastic. So in case this is your very, very, very first look at what HTML and CSS actually are, let's just go over that real quick. So HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It is your structure. So when you're building, whether it's a web app, a strict website, in fact, even a lot of native mobile apps will have HTML even at a core. It is your structure. So imagine it's like, this is your house. This is your base. This is what room you're going to have. It's all your different little elements. Now, CSS, on the other hand, is what you use to define what those elements look like. So that's the painting on the wall, the size of your room, and so on. So again, HTML is going to be your elements in your structure, and CSS is going to be how that is going to look. And CSS, just so you know, it stands for Cascading Style Sheets. All right, let's go ahead and now that we have our files ready, let's start writing some code. Okay, so let's get started writing some code. The first thing we need is the base structure for our HTML. And the good thing is that there is a nice little shortcut for this, so you don't have to type everything out. So if I just start typing HTML, I get a couple little suggestions. What we'll want to use is HTML5. So just scroll down to that, click enter, and there you go. Gives you your base. You can always take the time to write this out, but it'll save you some time. We're actually going to do the same thing for linking over to our CSS file, because we need to bring that into here so that we can actually use it. So underneath title, let's go ahead and do that. Same kind of thing with that autocomplete. If we just type in link, we get some suggestions and we can scroll down to CSS, click enter, gives us our base. And from there, we can just start typing in, because you can see it just set up like style.css as like your standard, but we know that we put that into a folder called CSS and we call it a postcard. So I can just start typing in there CSS, and you can see it already starts again trying to figure out what I want to do and where I want to go with this. So if I clicked enter there, it writes it, and then I can also see, okay, there's postcards.css. If I click enter again, it will autocomplete. Of course, I could have written that out as well. Okay, now I've got my my style sheet linked up. Let's also go ahead and change this title. So I'm just going to double click here on document. That will select it. And I'm just going to type in travel, Peru, postcard. Awesome. So in the body, what we're going to do is we're going to create a few different elements here. Again, it's pretty simple. That's why we want to start with a project like this. Instead of starting out with like a full-blown website, this is actually the best way to go ahead and learn HTML and CSS is to set up a project like this. Okay, so the first thing is we're going to create a new div element. Div elements are going to be pretty much the most commonly used element that you're going to have. It's really just a container. It's actually called a block container. So in this case, again, we can still do the same type of thing. I can go just div and click enter. It will create my div. And inside of there, I can go class. So class, and then my quotation. So equals, then quotes. And I want to call this postcard. Okay. And then inside of this div, so you can see you have an opening container and or tag and a closing tag. Okay, that closing tag will always have that that slash right before whatever that element is, whether it's in this case a div, or you can see it here as an example on the body tag. You can see the opening and closing. That same thing with HTML, same thing with head. So you even see it on title. So opening and closing. We don't need that on our link because there's nothing that goes inside of there. All right, so the first thing, why don't we go ahead and just take a look at what that looks like in a browser. So what I can do is I can go to this file inside of my folder structure, or I can actually just right click on it and go reveal in Finder, or if you're on Windows, it'll be like Explorer, and that'll be your file explorer. And if I open that up, let's just go ahead and bring this in so you can see it. So I can see my files here. For an index, or actually any kind of HTML file, if you just double click on that, it's going to automatically open up your browser and load it up. Again, since we're not doing any other level programming, if it's just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, you can just run it straight from your file structure. So I'm just going to double click this and it opens up in my browser. Great. I got a big white blank canvas. So I got nothing. So let's go ahead and start giving this thing some style. Okay. So now to style this, let's go back over to our files. And we can go ahead and save this index file right now. So Command S or Control S, that's your shortcut to save. A lot faster than going up to the top and going File, Save. So I'm going to save that. And I'm going to go over to my postcard.css and start writing out some styling. So I'm going to start with the body. So just type in body, and then with your curly braces, you're going to put in a background color, and you will get some autocompletes here. Use these as a bit of a guide. Make sure that you do take the time to learn what each one of these things are. So again, anytime that you're using autocompletes or resources out in the wild, make sure you're learning what those are at the same time. So here I'm just going to go background color, and we're just going to do like a light gray, like a light slate gray. So I can just type that out. There's a lot of colors that are available that just have names to them. You can also just type those out too. Once you start learning a little bit of hex code for colors, you could also do something like this, like hashtag 333 or 3333. If they're all the same, you only need the first three. It auto completes and knows that you mean 6 of them. Again, that's hex code. And so this would give me that nice little slate gray. And inside the text editor, you actually get a little color picker. So inside of here, you can see what color it is, and you can even change it. And so if I was changing it around, it automatically updates. Okay. So again, for now, let's go ahead and go that light slate gray. Okay. And by default, you always get a little bit of margining that happens inside of that body. So we want to get rid of that because we want to define exactly how we want to position things. And we don't want that to give us any of that little crazy margin. So we want to add the property margin and then 0. And then px for pixel. Okay, so each one of these properties, this is the structure that it'll go, and it will end always in a semicolon. Okay, so now if I go and I save this, and we go back over and take a look, and we just refresh, we can see, okay, great. I got my nice little slate gray. Now let's start getting a postcard in there. So for the postcard, remember, we gave it a class. If we go back over and take a look at the HTML, we created this div element and we created a class for it called postcard. So in our CSS, go down a couple more after body, and we'll go dot. Dot signifies class. So we'll go dot postcard, brackets, and then let's go ahead and let's give this a width of 600, again 600 pixels, and a height of 400 pixels. Okay, now we're still not going to see it, even though it's got some size to it, because it has no border, it has no background, it has nothing. So let's at least give it a little bit of background just so that we can see it, some background color. So I'm just going to go background color, and I'll say white. Okay, save. Now, what we're going to see is not exactly what we ultimately want. What we're going to get is a big white square in the upper left-hand corner. So I'm going to go and click refresh. And there it is. Big white rectangle in upper left-hand corner. Okay, what we want this to do is get positioned down from the top and over in the center. So to do that, we just go margin top, and I'm just going to have that come down maybe 200 pixels. The more that you play around with pixels and sizing, you'll get accustomed to about what 600 looks like, what 100 looks like, what 20 pixels looks like. So you'll start knowing, like, okay, around about this is where I want to have that sized or moved around. So margin top 200 pixels, and then for margin left and margin right, so either side, to get it centered, we can simply go margin left, auto, and do the same thing, margin right and auto. Now there actually is a shortcut way that you could do this. You could just do margin and then have 4 different values for your top, left, right, and bottom margin. But since you're starting out, it's easier to go ahead and see it straight up. So you don't have to know, okay, the first value is the top, or is that the right, or is that the bottom? It makes it a lot easier to go ahead and see it like this, versus, just so you can see, if I went margin, then I could go 0 pixels, let's say 20 pixels, 20 pixels, and 35 pixels. Okay, so I could do that, and that actually defines all of my different margins. But again, harder to read when you are just getting started. So now that I have this, we're kind of good to go. It's going to go ahead and position it in the center. I do have to save, refresh, and there we go. So this is the first step. Now from here, let's start making that initial front cover of this postcard. And before we do that, we need to get some images. So that's going to be the next video, is we're going to jump in and we're going to start getting some of the images put together. All right. So now what we're going to do, we're going to focus on bringing our images into here. Now, attached to this module or lesson, you can find a zip file with all the images. In fact, you can also find a zip file with the entire project. But let's take those images and we're going to go toss those in to our project. So I'm going to go into my projects, into my postcard, and then right here, this is where I'm going to download, or I'm going to copy over those, that zip folder. So I'm just going to bring those into here, open them up. Awesome. I can just get rid of this then. And now if we go back over into our project, we can find those images right here. And just so you can get kind of a quick glimpse of what we're going to be bringing in, remember our ultimate project is going to look like this, right? It's going to have not only this image on the front, these images on the back, and then of course we're going to be working with the text. Okay, so if I come back over and I take a look at these images, I can see here is the postcard for the front image, the back image. Here's that back little main image. And then of course our little llama stamp. Awesome. So these are all graphics I made outside of this, and that might be another tutorial for another time, is just playing around in Photoshop and creating images. But for now, we're just going to use these pre-made images and we're going to start going. So in the next lesson, we're going to actually jump in and start bringing these images into our actual design so that we don't have just this blank. All right, so let's get back at it. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to start bringing in these images. First, we're going to bring in a few more elements into our HTML. Now remember, there are a ton of different HTML5 elements. In fact, why don't we just take a second, let's go pivot, and I'm going to show you a resource that you can go and just dive into all of these elements and kind of get an idea. If I just go ahead and just search, and I'm going to go HTML5 elements, and there's a resource that I like to use if I wanted to go look at any of these types of things. They'll be great for you as you're just getting started. And that's actually this, W3 Schools. There's a lot of different sites where you could find this kind of information. This one I just think organizes it fairly well. So if we jump into that, and this is going into HTML5 semantic elements, which is elements that actually are a little bit more descriptive about what they are. This came along more with HTML5. Standard HTML, kind of old school HTML, which still is widely used. You're going to find anything from your tables to, if I jump in here to just regular HTML elements, you're going to see things like H1 tags, P tags. Okay, H1, it's a heading one. It's a large head. Okay, P stands for paragraph. Everything just stands for something, and it just either gives a structure to your page, or it creates an element for either an image or text or an iframe, anything like that. So this will just go through and kind of give you an idea of what some of these different elements are. And again, on the left-hand side, you can go down through and you can go, okay, I want to learn more about HTML element attributes. These are properties, kind of like class name, that you'll find it alongside any kind of element. In this case, this is a link. So this is an A tag with an attribute href, which is the reference for the hyper link. And then the actual URL that it's going to go to, or part in your website that it's going to go to. That's an example. Here's an image tag with its source. So that's going to be where that image actually resides, whether it's out there on, some external site, or it's there inside your directory. We're actually going to dive into this later. So this is just, again, a quick example. You can see that there's a lot that you can go through here. So we're not going to cover everything. I just wanted you to know what kind of resources you had available to you. And it is good for you to go and take a look at what's HTML5 or HTML responsive. What's HTML? Well, let's go back over to that HTML semantics real quick. There we go. And then you can see, okay, we've got element types like article, details, footer, header. Do you have to use these? No, you don't. You don't have to use these to make a website or for a web project or component. But it's good for you to know that these exist and how they're used. So again, take a second, go dive into this and just play around a little bit. The great thing about this site is they have these little try yourselves. So click on that, it'll open it up and you can actually play around with some of these different elements, some of these different attributes tied to elements. And again, on the left-hand side, you can play around with it. So let's say if I change this to an H2, just so you can see a difference. And then I click on run, you can see that changed its shape. So it's, again, just a way for you to play around with what you're seeing there. Okay, that's enough of a pivot. Let's jump back into the actual project. I'm just going to close these down so I don't see them. All right, let's go add some images to this thing and make it look a little cooler. So the first thing we need to do, remember, like I said, I'm going to add some elements inside of here, and we're really just going to stick with divs because it's all we need for this. And a div is just a block element, meaning it's going to be something that really resides on its own. It can stack, for example, versus what's called an inline element, where you're going to have something that can actually reside next to each other, right? Examples of inline elements could be spans, or even that link element that I just showed you that it was an A tag. That also is an inline element. Okay. Again, and I digress, and let's jump back in. So I'm going to jump down inside of this. And again, you can see the opening and closing of this element. And inside of it, I'm going to add another one. I'll just go div. Now, if you want to do like little shortcuts for adding classes and things like that, I don't need that. What you can do is, as you start writing this out, you can go div dot, and dot is for class. Remember what we did over in the CSS? So dot is for class. Side note, hashtag you use for things where you're using an ID. In fact, I think we'll add an ID somewhere in here just so you can see the difference when we go into it. Even though we don't need it, we'll just do it so you can see it. Okay, so I'm going to go postcard and content. Okay, so if I just write that out and then I click enter, everything was right in the world and it did make my actual element. So fantastic. That's what I wanted to do. And it actually put my cursor right in the middle of it. So if I click enter, I can just keep going inside of it now. So it's just a quick way. Do you have to do it that way? Nah, there's a lot of different ways you can make that. You can just type it all out, but it is a little shortcut. And so along this course, I'm going to be telling you some of the little shortcuts and tips and tricks that you can do along the way. So inside of this, so this is going to be the main container inside of there. I'm going to go ahead and add one more element for now, and that's going to be the front. So I'm just going to do the same thing I just did. Div, postcard, and front. Enter, and there we go. That's all I'm going to do for now, because we're going to go give this thing some style. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to save this. Remember, Command or Control S. Okay. Now, right now, we won't see anything different. Like if I come back over here and I refresh my page, I see no change. Let's go make some changes. So let's go over to our product CSS or postcard CSS. Okay. And inside of here, we are going to add some style for, and remember dot for a class, our postcard content. Okay. Then little curly braces, and let's go ahead and give this some style. So first, let's go ahead and give this a position. That way we can start putting some elements inside of it and moving them around. As a parent item, we want this to have a position relative. So I'm going to go position relative. Okay. There are multiple types of positions. There's relative, there's fixed, there's sticky, there's absolute. They all do different things. And we're going to actually explore some of those different ones in this project. But for now, I'm just going to make this relative in case I need to position anything around inside of it. This helps. Okay. Then I'm going to give it a, let's give it a nice little border. And let's just give that a border of 5 pixels by, and we're going to make it solid. There's 3 main things that you need to put inside of a border attribute or property. So you have to have the size, you have to have what kind it is, and its color. So for example, if I did this and I just did red and we just save and we go take a look, there we go. We don't have a whole lot happening in here because also at this point, we don't have any width. We don't have any height. So all we got is like a little red line. If we went and just gave this a, here, just a little bit of height. And let's just go 100%. So that's going to be 100% of its containing element. Remember, that's actually this postcard here. And in fact, we can take, we can take this background color out now from here, just because we don't truly need it right now. This was just so that you could see it get positioned. So if we go here and we go, height is 100%, width is also 100%. And now let's just change this. Instead of red, let's actually go white. Now, again, I can type out white, or you can use a hex code. So you can go hashtag FFF. That is also white. And if I only do 3, remember hex is 6. That just means that it's the exact same for the other 3. So that is white. But for the sake of this, just to make it easier, I'm just going to say white. Done. Now we should have a box that is 600 by 400, because it's going to take up the width here. That's its parent element. So it's going to take up its width. It's going to take up its height. And it's going to have a border of 5 pixels. And it's going to be a solid border. And then there really won't be anything inside of it. So it's just going to be a border and it's going to be blank inside. Let's go see what that looks like. It looks like that. Now let's keep giving it more style, but we're getting there. So again, ultimately what this is going to look like is like this. Now you can see, oh, but I have some drop shadows here. I have some rounded edges or rounded corners. So let's keep going. Okay, so now let's work on that border radius. Okay, that's that rounded corners. So I'm going to go border radius. And let's just give this a simple border radius of 5 pixels. Again, you can play around with that, see what that looks like. But in this case, that's going to be about what I want, right? Either 5, maybe even 4. Okay, now I'm going to give it a shadow. So we do box shadow. Now this actually takes a lot of different properties to it. So what I'm going to do is we're going to set this at 0 pixels by 10 pixels by 10 pixels and by 5 pixels. And that's just kind of like a good shadow for, again, giving us this type of shadowing here, where it's slightly on top. We see it on its edges. Basically, it's almost like light's coming down from the top. And that's what you're going to find with those different properties. You're going to have your basically like your spread or your like X and Y, as well as size and blur. In fact, if you want to see those, we can look that up and you can see all of that back over on that W3 schools. If you go, let's say box shadow, this will be an easier way for you to see it. Box shadow, let me just put it in W3 schools. Okay, so there it is, CSS box shadow property. Okay, and this is just a real basic one right here. And again, you can jump into the try yourself and see it. But if we go down further, you can see all of those different properties I'm showing, right? So you have your horizontal offset, your vertical offset, your blur, spread, And then we're going to do color here in a second. We're not going to do anything with like inset or anything else. But we will be using these 5 properties right here. Okay, so again, horizontal offset, vertical offset, you can think of that also as X and Y, your blur and your spread. Okay, and again, any of these you can demo, you can play around with. Okay, so now let's go back over. And again, I told you we're going to do those 5. So again, we got horizontal, vertical, your blur and your spread. Now we need to give it color. And what we're going to do on this color is going to be a little different. We could just go black and that would work. But I actually want to give this some transparency, and I want to teach you guys about also using RGBA. So RGBA allows us to bring in color with a transparency. So let me explain this property a little bit more. So RGB is just your basic color, right? I think it's red, green, blue. And then that just creates a variety of different color, right? A stands for alpha. So that allows us to give an opacity, that's a transparency property to it. So what we're going to do here is we are just going to give this one, let's say 63 by, in fact, just to make this easier, I'm just going to go 55, 55, 55, basically kind of a dark gray. And then it's alpha. So again, that's the R, the G, and the B. Yeah, and then our alpha. If I did 1, it means it's full transparency, right? But I can go and give it a 0.5, and now the opacity is half. All right, it's 50%. And actually, might just change this one here to 63. Now, one of the cool things about this editor is you can go in here, you can click on it, and you can actually drag this around. So you can see like, oh, I want it more like about this kind of black or this. So you can really play around with that. All of that's going to work. For our case, even if I just drop it right here, that would work. Okay. Save. And now let's go check that out. So now that we got our border radius, our drop shadow, we refresh. Oh, I need to save. Refresh. There we go. Now we got our 5 pixel border radius. We got our drop shadow. Everything looks good. Now let's get an image inside of here. So remember, we added another div called postcard front, and that's where we're going to have the front text and the front postcard image. So let's go down and postcard. So dot postcard, spell it correctly, front. Cool. Now, for here, all we really need to do, let's give this thing a background color, background image. Now, if I go background color, and let's just make that white, we actually won't see that fully if we come back over and refresh, because remember, still, it has no height, has no width. So we do need this thing to be full width and full height. So just like this one here. So let's just go height 100%, width the same. And now here's the cool thing. For one, let's go take a look at that. Now we have full white. Now let's add an image. So we go background image. This is where it starts to get cool. So background image, and then we just need to give it a URL property. Okay, so URL. Now we can go find that image inside of the directory. If I just go like ... and /, that actually brings me over into the root of my directory. Okay, ... means come back out one directory, or just out of the directory I'm in. And if you look, the postcard file is inside of the CSS directory. So I need to come outside of this one so that I can get inside of the other ones, right? So I can go into images. So now I can just click on images and I can click on postcard front, or you can type that out. Either way is going to work. Now, if I go ahead and save that, this thing is going to start looking like a postcard. Awesome. Now, in the next lesson, we'll go ahead and cover bringing in that text for this front. All right. So now let's go ahead and give this some text. So jump back over to code, and we're going to go inside of this postcard front, and we are going to give it a title and a tagline. Remember, what we're going to be trying to do is get it to look like this. So we have a title and a tagline. Also, we can see that there's a bit of a transparency there as well. So let's go div.title. Inside of the title, I want another div for the tagline. Awesome. And the title, I'm just going to say is Travel Peru. And the tagline is going to be Adventure is Waiting. Cool. Now, again, if we go take a look at this, this is going to be pretty boring, right? Because it's got no style yet. But let's just take a look. There it is. You can't see it because it's kind of dark and it's all right up there. Okay. But remember, everything starts upper left-hand side. That is 0 on the y-axis and 0 at the x-axis, which is always top left. Okay. Let's give this thing some style. So coming back over, let's go into our CSS. Go title. And for the title, remember how I said that there's different types of positions: relative, absolute, sticky, fixed, and so on. Right now, we are going to give this a position absolute. Okay, so what that means is I'm going to tell this exactly where I want this to be. So it's not going to be positioned based on margins or padding or anything like that. It needs to be exactly where I want it to be. Now, for this to have been effective, the parent of this needs to be relative. Now, this is actually a good one that we, again, take a little pivot time and discuss. Because I do have this title tag actually inside of this postcard front. That's actually its parent, right? So if I take a look back here, the title element is inside of the postcard front. Okay, so that is its parent. Now, this is also a parent that it would bubble up to. And we really only put position relative on the ultimate parent, right? On the content. So that's actually what it would be relative to, that absolute positioning. So in this case, we probably, even though that's going to work, that would totally work because they really have the exact same dimensions. They're both 600 by 400 because the parent is 600 by 400. And then this one here is going 100% full in that. Width is 100%. So it's the same. But for good practice, let's go ahead and let's just take this property and bring it down here as well. Just so that you can see that get positioned inside of its parent properly. Okay, so we go position absolute. Now we need to actually say, where do we want that to live? So let's say top is going to be, let's say 145 pixels. Okay, so from the top, 145 pixels, that's where it's going to be. Let's go ahead and let's just make this thing the entire width, and that way we can just center the text. So now we'll go width and 100%. So now it's going to stretch it all the way across, and that way we can take the text that normally would be right up against the left side, and we'll just center it. Okay, so let's go text align, center. And again, just like usual, I like to go ahead and save, go take a look, and then we keep working. So let's save, go take a look. All right, so now we can see the whole title got moved over. It's 145 pixels from the top. Obviously, it has no other major styling yet, but we can see that it's getting positioned correctly. All right, so now let's give this thing a little bit more style. Let's go font size is going to be 90 pixels. And the font weight is going to be bold. And let's go ahead and give it a color. So the color is going to be white. Now we don't want it to be just like pure white, because we do want this thing to have a bit of a transparency. So let's give it an opacity of around 80%. So 80% is 0.8 or just 0.8, right? Remember, 1, full transparency, right? It's just all there. If we want to bring that opacity down, just put it down in percentages. Okay. Now we do want to go ahead and set the line height, because in this case, where the tagline is going to be, it would start getting kind of scrunched up. And we want it to be kind of an exact height. So I'm going to go line height. Actually, before I do that, we'll go ahead and see what that looks like, and then we'll keep going. Okay. Also, this is going to make the tagline also big. And oh, that's an important one. 90x means nothing. 90px means 90 pixels. Okay, so now huge, not going to work, right? Remember, I just said that the tagline is also going to have that same style because it's getting parented in, because it's inside of that title div. So we're going to style that separately. But we can also see like, well, the line height is actually too big, so we do need to scrunch it down a little bit. We need to bring it where it's right underneath. Otherwise, it's just not going to look quite right. So we're going to come back to the line height after we get the tagline a better font size. So I'm going to come down. We're going to go tagline, and let's just make that a smaller font. So font size 30 pixels. So about a third of the other. Cool. This is starting to look pretty decent. We got our opacity set so I can see through it a little bit. I would just want this tagline to be up a little closer. So that's where I'm going to set that line height. So I'm going to go line height. Instead of being that's kind of default at 90 pixels, I'm going to go 60 pixels. So kind of like right in the middle between the two. And it just bumps that up a little bit, looks a little cleaner. Okay, so one last thing I do want to add to my font is, well, actually two things. I want to change the font, and I also want to give it a little bit of a drop shadow. So let's start with the drop shadow. So we did box shadow before. That's going to be for like box elements. But in this case, I'm going to do text shadow. Okay. And we are just going to do that 2 pixels by 2 pixels. We're going to keep it pretty simple. And the same type of thing with RGBA. And I'm just going to go real quick, full black. So just like this, that's just black. And I'm going to go 80%. There we go, 0.8. So now I should be able to see a little bit of a drop shadow. And if we go back over, there you go. So we got a little bit of a drop shadow happening now. That gives a bit better contrast. Now we just got to have the fun thing of going and giving this a proper font. Now fonts, it's going to be a little different. So especially because I'm seeing this on my local, meaning on my computer, this isn't up on a server. I can actually use any font that I actually have on my computer and I would see it. That doesn't mean that that's what's going to work on the web. On the web, you're on another server, so it's going to be whatever fonts it has, including like even what the person viewing it may have, right? But in this case, what we want to do is we're going to go bring in some Google fonts. Okay, this is the quickest and easiest way to go find some cool fonts that you can use on the web anywhere and you can bring into your HTML document. So I'm going to go Google Fonts. And from here, I am going to search a font called Sriracha. It's not just an awesome hot sauce, it's also an awesome font. So here I can see, okay, it's all written in Thai. That's awesome. I want to see what this will look like for my title. So I can just go travel Peru and I can get an idea. Okay, that's what I want this thing to look like. Cool. So now I need to get this font and bring it in. So go to the top, go get font, and I can do get the embed code, or I can download. I don't need to download this unless I wanted to use this font inside of like Photoshop or somewhere else for different projects, maybe a PowerPoint. But I actually just want to embed this. So if I click on embed and embed for web, I have a couple different options here. I can do link, which in that case, I would bring it to my HTML document, or I can do an import, which I would use inside of my CSS. And in fact, let's do this one. Let's do import. And I'm just I don't really need to copy all this code because I don't want this. This would break my CSS file, right? This would still be what I would use to go toss into an HTML document. Though that's an opening tag and a closing tag, that is a style tag or a style element, right? So, okay, what I actually want is just this right here. And it'll tell you like, okay, embed this in the head of your HTML document. Again, that will work. But I can also bring this straight into my CSS. So if I go back over, go to the top of my CSS file, I'll show you both ways of doing this so you can see both actually function. If I just toss it straight into there, and then I can use it, and it gives you instructions on how to use it too, right? Here's the font family property, and here's how this would come in. So yeah, I can just grab that. I could also just type that out too. So if I just went font family, and then did sriracha, let's see, I'd have to type it out. Okay, and then cursive, yada, yada, basically that. Okay, save. And we come back and take a look. And there we go. So that is one way you can bring it in. Again, you can do an import straight into your CSS file, or you could also grab, again, you could either grab this whole text here and go toss it into your head. That would work. Or you can take this link here and you can toss it. Honestly, you really only need this one here at the bottom. That's the actual link to the document, to the font. These are just kind of like preloaders, but you don't truly need them. I'll just copy all the code so you can see it. Again, this is how we're going to end up doing it because it's cleaner. And I'll save that. So again, now we would see if we went back over, it's going to be back. It won't know what it is. So it went to the second in line, which was just cursive. So when it's sriracha, nope, I don't find it. So I'll do cursive. That's what this is showing here. When you do font family, try this one first. If that doesn't work, go to this one. If that doesn't work, go to the next one. So for example, if I did in front of this, I did Arial and save and come back over. It'll just use Arial because I found it. If it didn't, it would go to cursive. Okay. So let's go ahead and get this thing to actually show up. If we go back over to our index file inside of our head, and actually let's do this above our style sheet. Okay. Remember, I could actually get rid of these two, but we'll go ahead and leave them in. And now if I refresh, I have the font again. So I can do that for each one of the fonts that I need. And I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this. I'll just do Control Z. couple times, save that. And I'm going to put this again, Control Z to toss that up, put it back. That's how we're going to bring in fonts for the rest of this project. There is another font that we are going to import later, and we'll get to that when we get to the back. So that will take us into the next video. Okay, now that we've successfully done the front of our postcard, we need to do the back. Then we're going to need to do flipping this thing around. But let's go ahead and do the back right now. So again, the back is going to look like this. So we got a couple different things happening here. We actually have 3 images. We have a background image. We have this kind of main image here. And then we have our fun little stamp up on the right-hand side. These lines actually already, I believe that they exist in there. Let me go take a look at that graphic. Yeah, so these already exist in there, and we're just going to go ahead and get our text to just line up perfectly on those lines. So let's get to it. All right, so the first thing is let's start building out the postcard back. So this is not going to be inside of the postcard front, but it will be inside of the postcard content. So right underneath here, I'm going to do a div postcard back. Okay. And then inside of that postcard back, I need a couple other elements. Remember, we just saw them. So we're going to need to do the stamp. So let's go div dot stamp to give it that class. Okay. Inside of that, we're going to toss an image, but I'm going to save that. I'm just going to make the divs real quick. So then we go div dot back image. Okay. And then we need to do the postcard text, of course. Div dot, let's go postcard text. Awesome. Okay. Now let's start one by one and start bringing some of these elements together. So the first thing we're going to do is get that back postcard image on here. So if we go over, let's save that, go over to postcard CSS, scroll down, and let's go postcard back. It's going to be very similar to the postcard front. Okay, so for this, let's just do background, and well, we can give that whatever color we want, but I'm just going to go give it a background image. It's really all I need. So background image and URL, just like before. Image and postcard back. Okay. Now, remember, we're still not going to see it because we have no width, height, and all that. So I'm just going to go width 100%. Height 100%. I'm also, for good practice, I'm going to also make this position relative. I might change that here in a bit, but for right now, that will be fine. Okay. So now if I go take a look, okay, and this is exactly what I would expect to happen right now. Right now, it's actually jumping outside of that top div. So that the container div that has the border and all of that. Remember, we had that as a fixed height and width, and we just added some more. So it just jumped all the way outside of it, which is great for now, so that we can see things and we can start working on it. And then what we're going to do is start actually positioning it up. We're going to flip it, and that way we can actually get this animation to happen. And again, all in CSS. But this gives us a space to work. So let's continue. Let's go ahead and get that stamp now into position. So for the stamp, we're not going to do a background image. Not that we couldn't, we could, but we're actually going to use an image tag on this one. So inside of here, we're just going to go image, and we can just go image just like that. And if you just click enter, it kind of helps to autocomplete that. So let's go through this. So source is going to be where that actual image is. So we do the same type of thing. We can go ... Actually, where I'm at now, I'm in the root. I don't even need to do that. So I can actually just go image. Because remember, this index file, it's in the root. So it can just look straight into images. It doesn't have to traverse outside. So images, and then stamp. Alt is an alternative text. So what this is, so you understand what this property means, it is for, let's say, screen readers or other kinds of accessibility. So that when you're going through an image, if somebody can't see because they have a sight impairment, they can actually, a screen reader can pick up the alternative text and it will read, and I can put in here llama stamp or whatever I want to put in there that would help describe what that image is. So if you can't see the image, this will help describe what it is. Okay, so that creates that image. Now again, remember, where's it going to be? Upper left-hand side. So if I save that, go take a look. Upper left-hand side, not where I want it. So we need to go ahead and shift that over to the right. And to do that, let's go ahead and get into our CSS and add another class, stamp. Okay, and for this, how do we position something absolutely where we want it to be? Position absolute. And now we just need to give it its top and right. So you have 4 different properties to tell this where to be. You have top, you have left, you have right, and you have bottom. Okay, and it's all positioned by either pixels or percentage. And in this case, it's gonna be pretty simple. What I want this to be is about 10 pixels from the top and just about 2 pixels from the right. And that'll give it its position that I want it to be in. So I'm just going to go top, 10 pixels, and right is going to be 2 pixels. Head back over. And there we go. So now we have our stamp exactly where we want this to get positioned. Looking pretty good. So now in the The next video, we're going to cover getting that main picture into place, and then we'll close out with the text. Okay, getting that main picture into place. This is going to be a fun one because this also, we're going to make it round, give it a border, and do some different things with it. So remember, if we come back over here, we have a background image here. So we need to actually toss in an image for it. So the same thing that we just did with the stamp, we're going to do here. So I'm just going to go image and then just click enter to help my autocomplete, and then give it a source. It's going to be in images, and it's going to be that back main, postcard back main. And then for the alt text, I'll just call it Machu Picchu. Okay. Now, by default, that's going to be probably a little too big. If we go take a look at it, it's also going to be all the way up, starting left-hand side, top, way too big. Let's play around with this. And obviously it's square and it has no styling. So we need to make something that looks like that. Okay. So all done with CSS. We come back over and we come down and we go to back image. That is the, back image is the class. Okay, so inside of here, we also want to give it an absolute position, but we also want to give it a little bit of style as well. But actually, you know what we'll do on the style is we'll do that on the actual image tag. So you can also start seeing how we can kind of chain the definition in CSS. It's called specificity on element to element and so on, because we're going to actually put the style on the image tag. So first, let's go ahead and just get this thing into position. We're not going to do any style to the image yet, but we're just going to go position. It's going to be absolute. And then let's go ahead and let's position this from the bottom and from the left. Now, again, on the element, it's going to use its top left corner as its pinpoint. So it'll be the top left corner of it and then over. So I'm just going to go bottom 20 pixels and left 40 pixels. By the way, if you were 40 pixels, if you were ever wanting to turn a project like this into something that was like super responsive, because right now we're hard coding. This is 600 by 400 pixels. This is from the top 145 pixels. This is from the right 2 pixels. All of that is hard coded to the pixel. It means it's always going to be that size. But if you wanted something that actually would shrink up, you could change all of these different elements, all their positioning and their sizing to percentages and things like that. So there are paths where you can make this where it would all just shrink up, all the images, all the positioning, all by percentages. So that is something you could play around with in another project just to see, hey, can I get this actually all stay together, but looking, proper at this size of a phone and so on. But again, for introduction, let's keep it simple. And so you're starting to learn pixels. So let's save that and go just take a look. This is not going to be awesome, but you can just see a little bit on where this starts getting positioned. So, okay, I can see it moved it over 40 pixels and moved it up 20 pixels from the bottom. Okay, that's going to be cool when we get this thing the right size and the right shape. And that's what we're going to do now. So we're going to go back image. And then we're going to just reference the image tag. Okay, this is one way to do it. And again, I could do this in other ways. I could give this image tag, this one right here, I could give it a class. And I could just give some CSS styling to that class. Totally work. But what I wanted to show you is that you can go ahead and also do CSS through specificity, meaning I can go, I don't want to style all the images on here. For example, if I did this, I would be styling all the images on the entire HTML document. All of them would be like this. What I want to do is I want to just do the back image like this. So again, it'll be back image, and then inside of that, this image tag. Okay, so that's enough of that. Now let's give this a proper width. So I'm going to go width is 200 pixels. Now I can actually have this because I want this to be a perfect circle. This is already, I believe, a perfect square. So if I leave height out, it's going to auto, it's going to be proportional. So it's going to go auto height, right? If I just leave height out. However, if I happen to have something that wasn't quite 100% square, that's not going to look quite right. So a lot of times you will want to specify the height as well as, and it needs to be the exact same. It needs to be a square to be able to get a perfect circle in this case. Otherwise, you have to go a whole different route, which is making the container of the image a circle and then have overflow set to none so that it actually just kind of crops it. That's not what we're doing here. We're just going to go height 200 pixels, width 200 pixels, keep it simple, and border radius. Is going to be 50%. That's going to give us a perfect circle. Now, if we take a look at this, it's going to start coming together, but we are missing a couple different properties that are going to make this look even better. So let's just take a quick look. All right, this is starting to, like I said, it's coming together. I got it coming up from the bottom over to the left. Position is absolute. Got the right height, width. Now let's just give it that little extra styling, which is, let's give it a border. And on this one, let's just go 3 pixels. I'm going to actually show you a couple different things. We'll go 3 pixels white. There's no order. The order on this is not that important. So I can go 3 pixels white and then I can go solid. I do want to show you that if you do something else besides solid, a couple different options. You could do dashed. You can do dotted. So there are different types of borders that you can put around elements. In this case, I'm still going to keep this solid, and I'm going to go give it a drop shadow. So let's go back to solid, and let's go box shadow. And on this box shadow, let's go a 0 pixel by 2 pixel by 2 pixel, and with a 2 pixel. Yeah, so 2 pixel spread, 2 pixel blur, 2 pixel on vertical, and 0 at the horizontal, and RGBA. Okay, same thing. Remember, I can go ahead and find a color here, but that's actually around about what I want to do. But I want to make it a little bit more transparent. I'm going to go about 0.3, so 30%. Okay, save. Let's go take a look. Awesome, and that's what I want. Okay. So in the next video, we'll go ahead and we'll cover getting the text inside of here. Okay, adding this background text, or the text for the back of the postcard, is going to be pretty fun. So, because we do need to get it where it lines up exactly right on each one of these lines, because again, they're just part of the image. We're just going to take advantage of them. So let's go first. Let's put some text into this thing. So in the postcard text, let's go ahead and write out, I wish you were here. This place is amazing. And let's just spell that correctly. I wish you were here. This place is amazing. Okay, and let's say hiking the Incan Trail tomorrow, mañana. Bum, ba, bum, bum. Okay, now remember I showed you some of the different elements earlier over on that W3 Schools. And as far as for a break tag, you can just toss that straight in here. All that is a line break. That's what that means. So it's just a way of dropping it down to the next line. So I want to do that. And then I'm going to add a span, which remember I talked about inline and block elements. So a span is an inline element. That's why I needed to give it a break. So I'm just going to go span, and I'm going to give this a class of signature. Okay, because then I'm going to go see you soon. Then I'm going to give it another break. And Jeremy. Perfect. So where's this going to be right now? Upper left-hand side, and with no styling whatsoever. Yep, there it is. So we definitely need to make this thing look a little cooler and more in position where we want it to be. We definitely want to change this into something that looks more like handwriting as well. So to do that, let's go ahead and head over to our postcard. And remember, we got postcard text and signature. We need to give some styling too. So postcard text. And we also have signature. You know what? As an example, remember I said I'm going to make at least one of these in ID just so you can see it. Let's go ahead and do that now. Let's change this postcard text to an ID. So let's explain what IDs and classes are. So on elements inside of your HTML document, this whole thing is an HTML document, right? You have a class property and ID property. Here's the difference. You can use both of them for styling, totally fine. But a class is something that you can add on to as many elements as you want. So for example, if I have a bunch of these postcards all on one page, and I wanted the postcard text to always look like this and to always be positioned like this and so on and so forth, which is what I would want to do, then I would want to use a class, because that class would, it will work to style multiple things. It works, again, it is meant to style in multiple elements. However, an ID is really only meant to be used once. So a class, use many times. ID, use once. Many times if you are using an ID, if you happen to use it more than once, it winds up just actually going and finding the first one and applying that style or JavaScript or whatever it happens to be to the first one. It's generally not what you want. Then you'd want to use a class. But if you wanted to do something very specific for if you had multiple postcards on one page and you wanted to specify out, I want this to happen on just this postcard, that's where you would use an ID. For example, you would probably use an ID up here. I would go like ID postcard, and I could say postcard, and let's say it was like a numerical ID. And then that would be specific to this postcard. And then I could give styling to just this one, or I could use it in other ways. That's generally how IDs would get utilized. But in this case, I am going to use one in styles just so you can see how you can use it over in CSS. So I'm going to leave this as postcard ID. Now, if I save this, I need to go change this over in the postcard. So instead of a dot IDs, use the hashtag. Okay, so that's how I would have to style this. Okay, so now let's go ahead and just jump into here and start giving this a little bit of style. So first thing is, let's go ahead and give it a different font size. So let's go font size 20 pixels. And position is going to be absolute. And we're going to go ahead and bring this over from the right about 10 pixels. Awesome. And from the top, again, we can go bottom, top. In this case, I do want to go from the top, and I'm just going to go about 170 pixels. Now, remember what we talked about with adding new fonts. So we're going to go find another font over on Google, and we're going to import it straight into here. So I am going to jump back over here, go back over to my Google Fonts, and I'm going to search for a font that is called Reenie Beanie, because it's kind of a nice handwritten font. Again, you can always come down here and you can see kind of what that's going to look like. So same thing we're going to do. We're going to go get font, and we're going to go get embed code, and we're going to do the import. And again, this also has Sriracha. So actually I could just use that. This one, you can see it has both font families right inside of here. So that I could do it all on one line. In this case though, I don't want to. I want to just have, let's get rid of this one so that you can see if I just had the single font. So I'm just going to take that and we're going to go paste it underneath. Okay. Or I could have just used that one that had both of them in it and then just replaced this top one because I wouldn't need it then. So either way is going to work for you. Okay. So let's go ahead and give this there. So it's not 100% done, but we're going to see it kind of get into position. We do need to give it that font family though. So, and we can go take a look. Remember, this is how that looks. So this is how you would bring it in. And I can just copy that, or I can type it out. In this case, I'm just going to copy it straight into here. So font family, Rainy Beanie, otherwise use the cursive. Cool. Oh, need to get rid of that. Now, if we go take a look, it's not going to be perfect yet, but it's going to start getting there. Okay. So it's starting to look right, but again, not quite there yet. So one of the things we're going to need to do here is we're going to need to do word wrapping for one. And we're going to need to change the line height. So coming back over, let's go word wrap is going to be normal. Okay. And the real important part of this is we need to actually specify a specific width. Otherwise, it's still going to be kind of that full width. So we need to go width is going to be constrained to 270 pixels. That's around that size of that little text area with the lines. That's going to make a difference. Now, let's go take a look. We won't see it as the right line height yet, but again, we're going to start seeing it coming together. Okay. So again, looking better. Now we just need to figure out line height and so on, because this is not lining up with those lines there. So let's go line height. And this would be one of those things you would do a little bit of trial and error to see what is going to work best for you. But in this case, I'm going to go and go 40 pixels. And let's go take a look. Okay. So that looks perfect. The only thing is that the signature is all the way over here on the left still, and I need it to be over on the right. So that's going to be real simple. I can just go here and I can float it to the right. Actually, I'm going to try. Well, now text align to the right is going to be, well, let's just see what it looks like. Text align right and come back over. Yeah, I thought so. We're going to need to go ahead and do a float. So float will actually just move things over. You can do a float left or float right. Save. There we go. And that's what I want that to look like. Fantastic. All right, we're in the home stretch. We got almost all of this done. So we got the llama, we got the main image, we got our text, we got our front. Now we just need to go ahead and get this thing into position and working on a rotation. And then we're good to go. So that's going to be covered in the next video. Okay, in this final video, we're going to put it all together. We're going to go ahead and get the front into its position, the back into its position. We're going to use some of the 3D capability within CSS to make this thing actually work on a hover effect, so we can flip it. So let's go ahead and get going. Let's go back over and we're going to stay in our CSS. And what we're going to need to do first is we're going to go ahead and need to make the postcard back and front, and it's going to be the same for both. We're going to need to give it a back face visibility as hidden. So that's going to be one of the first things that we're going to do. And I'm actually just going to scroll up where I'm around those elements. I like to keep the styling kind of around each other. Okay, so I'll just go about right here. That's all good. And go postcard. And back. And then if I do a comma and I do the same postcard front, what that does, by putting them both in here, again, just separated by a comma, I can put styling to both of them at the same time. So the first thing I want to do is go back face visibility, and I'm going to set that to hidden. And if by chance you need to do this, I can also do the web kit. That's really just for some things on like older Safari. But I'll go ahead and put it in here just so you can see it. So I go WebKit, backface, visibility. A lot of times you don't need this anymore. Most browsers support all of these different things. But I'm just going to put it in here again for a good practice. Okay. Now, one of the other things I actually am going to need to do is I had positioned both of those as relative, but actually I need them to stack now. So I wanted them to be relatives during the first design phase because I wanted you to be able to see things as we were building it. And if I would have done them both as absolute at the beginning, it would have just stacked them up on each other from the get-go. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to go to postcard front and back. We are going to remove position relative. And postcard back, where are you? Remove these. Also, we can take a look and start cleaning up some of this code. Because, for example, we have postcard back. We have a width and height on this one, and we have width and height on this one. We don't really need them because we can put them all on this shared, right? So I can actually just take this, remove it, and put it right here, because this is defining for both of them. So it's kind of redundant. It would work. It's totally fine. Just kind of redundant to keep it back over here. Also, I don't need this background color anymore. So I've got postcard front, postcard back. I can also remove from that postcard back here the width and height. So now I'm really just specifying the background image. Okay. So that's the first part. Now what we'd start seeing is, because now they're both absolute, if we come back over, everything's kind of like just jumped up and all together. So now what we need to do is start kind of moving this around. So let's see. Oh, yeah, we didn't do position absolute yet. That's why the other part of that didn't come up. We need to go position absolute. Now, if we go back over, you can see it actually, the bottom just moved up, because now they're just stacked, but they're stacked on top of each other, which is also, by the way, called the Z index. So you have X, Y, and Z. Okay, so now what we want to do to make this the way that we want is we are going to, let's go ahead and let's rotate the back. Actually, we need to go ahead and do a transform style on the main content piece. On this element, so postcard content, that's the top parent. We are going to do a transform style. And what we're going to do is preserve 3D. Okay. And let's also give, so that we have a nice smooth animation. Let's go transition. And this, again, this will be more for that animation. We're going to go transition and transform. And we're going to make that about 0.8 seconds. Okay. That should work for that. Let me also just check. Do I have? Yeah. Perfect. Okay. And we have position absolute. So now what we need to do is let's take the postcard back, and we are going to rotate that. So we're also going to do a transform on the postcard back. And that is going to be rotate Y 180 degrees. Flip it. So just like that. That's 180 degrees. Rotate Y. Okay, so we got some of this starting to come together. We can go take a look, but we're not fully there yet. But just so we can see what's happening. Okay, great. We got the front. We don't have any kind of hover effect yet happening because we haven't coded that yet. But let's go do that now. Okay, so when we want to do a hover on anything, and I'm going to do this right underneath postcard here. I'm going to go postcard because I'm going to do that. That's that top level. It's right here. It's the main element, right? So I'm going to do postcard. And then I'm going to give it a hover effect. So it's just colon hover. And then for one, I want it to have like the actual like little hand pointer when you hover over it. It just lets people know that this is doing something. So I'm going to say cursor is pointer. And you can kind of see what that looks like now. If we just go back over, like right now, you just see the actual cursor, the little arrow. If I refresh and I hover over, you get the little finger pointer. So that's what's happening here. This is how you can do any kind of hover effects. What we want is we want it to actually transform the postcard content inside of it and rotate it. So we can do that by going same type of thing. Postcard, hover, but I want you to do it for this next element, postcard content. And I want you to transform to rotate Y 180 degrees. $180. Okay. And now let's go take a look. Refresh. And there we go. So now it rotates fully. Looking pretty good. I would say that pretty much does it. Let's make sure that just a little bit different positioning. So let's just let's take a look. Again, this would work out okay. So to get it with that that same level of perspective for the flip, we really only need to add one more property. So if we head back over and we go to our postcard element or postcard class here, if we just add perspective and then just make that 1,000 pixels. Save, head back over, refresh, and now I get that that perspective that I'm looking for. Perfect. So this concludes this course and gives you a good practice example project that not only can you use this in a lot of different ways, either building like different HTML elements, components. There's a lot of different ways that you can use these same techniques. To me, it's best to work on a project of this scope versus jumping straight into a website. However, we are going to do a course on building a full website as well. But thank you for hanging out with me for this whole time, and I hope this helped. All right, congratulations. You did it. You finished this project and you finished this course. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to challenge you to go in and modify this postcard. So make it from somewhere else, like Travel Aruba or something else, right? Whatever you want, go ahead and modify both the text and the graphics. Also, maybe try to change it into something else, right? This same kind of mechanism, remember, it's modular. It's more of a component. So you could change this into a flipping business card, a flipping product component, or anything else that you can think of. It could be a movie cover with the cast on the other side, whatever it is. Just come up with something that challenges yourself to go and learn a few new things, maybe things you even have to go look up and figure out how to do, like adding a background, but making it the right size, playing around with sizing and positioning for backgrounds. You've now seen where you can go find those kind of resources as well. So again, take this time and play around. Playing is the best way to learn anything. And with that, hopefully I'll see you in some of my next courses. From here on, I'm going to have a lot more courses that'll be on both web design, mobile design, and also a lot of different AI courses. So congratulations, and we'll see you next time.